Good morning. Welcome. We're back Monday, July 13th, 2026. Today, happy Monday, everyone. Mondays. 4,917 days in a row from me. Yay. Yesterday, I did not do a stream, but today I'm back to it. I always got to reach down for my napkins down there. Probably see if I can put them in a better place so I'm not always interrupting things. Still working on this painting, but before I get into that, I'm kind of taking my time at the beginning of this stream because I want people to show up. There's always this kind of meandering part at the beginning of the stream because I have people that show up on the stream, a little bit after it starts, right? And there's things I want to talk about today that I think is really cool. But also, I know that there's people that are going to be coming into this stream, this video, after it's recorded. And I don't want them to have to wait for the content to happen. So it's a weird balance to kind of figure out. I think the only thing is, people that are watching this right now, you could just fast forward to the good stuff. And I'm being very self-conscious about my hair that's just sticking up on the top right now. I don't know why. Anyway, stupid stuff. Don't need to be talking about. Okay. This painting is coming along well, but very slowly. This is I think I'm at day 10 or something on this painting. Let me see. Where was I on that? I keep track of all this. I actually write a bunch of stuff down. Yeah, day 10. Today is day 10 on this painting. I don't spend this long on paintings. I think, I know what was happening mostly with this painting is that I'm doing a lot of talking here on the stream, a lot of teaching. A lot of my life is kind of moving from this idea of me being this solo artist and trying to figure things out to teaching more and more. And I have to find that balance between doing a lot of painting on one end and trying to teach others as much as I can on the other end, that kind of thing. So that's why I think this is taking 10 days more. I mean, I got a few days left on it. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today because of the stuff I have to talk about. So let's get into that. I want to show you this. Let's just go to it. So, and the funny thing about this is I made some notes on where this is coming from, but it's kind of hard to read from my notes when, you're looking at my entire screen. So I'm going to bring up my notes on my phone here. So give me a second so I can read from both. Great way to be prepared there, Chris. Good job. Okay. So a person from my stream, to be specific and unspecific at the same time, their pseudonym is another person online. I'm not sure if they want their real name out there, so I'm not going to say it, and that's okay. So they sent me this image, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I was talking to them about it, emailing them about this image because they talked about, hey, I'm painting these small Renaissance heads right now, and I was like, okay, we'll see them. Send it over. I want to see your artwork. And I do that with everyone on the stream. I'm like, they're telling me, hey, I'm working on this or I'm working on that. Send it. I'd like to see it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll spend some time on it. I'm also doing mentorships on my website, chrisbevan.com, if you want to be part of that. I'm doing group mentorships as well as one-on-one mentorship. So if you want a group setting or one-on-one setting, that's possible. But I like talking to people about things because what will happen is I'll get epiphanies like I see on this painting here. I also got a XP pen tablet recently, and I've been playing around with it. So I want to see if this actually works, which it's not working right now. Or maybe it is. I just don't see it. I should probably not interrupt my stream with trying to play with the tablet. Okay, there we go. Make it a little bit smaller. Okay. We can zoom in on this as well. So why did I have such a visceral reaction to this, right? Well, when I was looking at another person's online imagery, some what they were painting from, if you notice, and I think this is from a book. I'm not sure. I went to the for-art.org, which shows down there, and I'm pretty sure this is from a book. It looks very familiar. I know I had a Russian academic drawing book, and it might be from that. Amazing book, but we won't get into that one. But what I want you to notice is the top row right here is photos of Renaissance busts, and then everything below that are paintings. And we know a lot of these, like Mona Lisa, right? And I think this is Caravaggio down here. And I'm not sure everything else. I'm not that learned. Maybe this is Rembrandt. That looks like Rembrandt to me. I could be completely wrong on this. But what was really interesting is when I was looking at the person's paintings, these little small paintings, which are fantastic. They're so beautiful. We got a bunch of glare on that one, but that's okay. You know, that's part of oil paint. But these paintings here from the Renaissance paintings, like here's Mona Lisa here, okay, there is a deeper understanding of structure. There's a deeper understanding. They're better paintings, definitely. When I look at these paintings here, this one here, even with some of the glare that's on it, the side portrait, oh gosh, the profile here, especially this one down here, which I think is Caravaggio. I could be completely wrong. You can see that they're moving through these heads and they're understanding the form a little bit more. And then when I look up here, I look at the busts that they painted, and I don't think it has anything to do with the color. You know, these are just grays up here at the top, you know, maybe black and white mixed together. This looks like just a very light single color kind of put on there. It feels confused. It feels like there's not as much understanding of what's happening, and there's a confusion within the brushstrokes of what's happening. You know, there's you can see the struggle in how they're putting brushstrokes down. And from looking at other artists and people that have been painting for years, I mean, I can look at certain brushstrokes like this on the side of the face here and see like the definite shape, the definite mark making that's happening. I mean, look at the eye shape here. We got like definite eye shapes happening, definite mark making, linear indications of, you know, that face in a lot of ways. Delete. And so confusion, non-confusion. And then I was thinking, or really, more exactly, it kind of hit me. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Minus Z, thank you, B. Okay, here we go. And I was looking at this and I'm like, why is there confusion here at the top versus the paintings at the bottom? And it just really hit me like a ton of bricks. These are photos. And what happens with photos, and when we're looking at photography, like we take a picture of our own head, we take a picture of a flower, a vase, you know, still life, landscape, or we're out in that location, we're looking at these things and we're trying to understand them. There's a million billion pieces of information that's hitting us in our eye and going into our brain, and it's hard to understand. But when we look at these paintings, especially, you know, this painting here, and I'm not sure who this is by, definitely a Renaissance painting, we can see that they have simplified these forms for us. Like, essentially, they've done the heavier work for us. These artists, these Renaissance artists, any artist that's good. I mean, not just Renaissance artists, right? This is anybody. So, like, the heavy lifting has been done. We see where the brush strokes go. We see like simplified shapes, like in the separation from the light side of the head to the dark side of the head. And another person online that was painting this picked up on that right away. And it goes, oh, okay, well, I can see what's happening here a little bit more easy. But when I'm dealing with photograph of a head, a three-dimensional form, it's a lot harder to see where one side of the head begins and one side of the head ends, where it becomes front of the head to side of the head, or when that point happens. It's very difficult to see this form here that indicates front or side of the head. We have the front here and the side here. And because there's just so much more information, like, confusing us. And that really struck me. I was like, oh, this is an amazing thing. Like, it really solidified for me why painting is so difficult and how we have a pathway of moving through it. I'm reading my notes right now. Yeah, the tremendous amount of information of photos often, leads to confusion. Like, from life, from photos, there's a ton of confusion there. Where does the light end and the shadow begin? When does the front of the head become the side of the head? But then with the paintings, all these amazing artists have done all that simplification for us. They have taken all that information and distilled it down into simple understanding. And then we kind of like piggyback on top of that, which is fascinating. We can go, oh, this is how this artist simplifies this form in a certain way. This is a very, very important lesson for us to learn, and the importance of simplification of complex forms. Here's an analogy that I was kind of working on with this, right? An analogy for how I'm kind of moving through this. And I love taking, art itself and kind of moving it through literature and writing and thinking about it in that way. Because for me, it really helps. For me, it really helps to look at art through this lens for a better understanding. Hey, Humdinger, welcome. Welcome. So when we're learning to read and write, we start out with children's books, right? Like Run, Spot, Run, or, I don't know. I'm not going to name a bunch of children's books. I'm thinking like Green Eggs and Ham and all that kind of stuff. Like those I forget that writer. Oh my gosh. Cat in the Hat, all those books. But anyway, when we start with these very simple children's books, right? And teachers have taken all the complexity of reading and writing and simplified it down into the like basic structure, basic words, basic sentences. And once we understand the simplicity, and we repeat that over and over again, then we add in complexity. We can write more complex sentences. We can speak with more complex words. We can get into the nuance of communicating understanding of ourselves in other ways. And the same is true for art. We can look at art books and tutorials all over the place, online or wherever. And all these books normally start with like simplicity, break down complex forms into something we can understand. Okay. And the example that I have for that, Dr. Seuss, thank you so much. Trying to go through all this stuff at one time is hard. It's like I'm planning a presentation. So I want to show you this. As soon as I was thinking about that, taking complex words into simplicity and looking at tutorials that do this, the very first book or person that I was thinking of was Andrew Loomis. So this is Andrew Loomis's book, Loomis, Drawing the Head and Hands. And many of you may know this. I wonder if I can show this full screen. There we go. Many of you may know this book because this is the Loomis head, okay? The way that Andrew Loomis, this is very specific. I mean, there's a million ways to simplify things, right? But this is how Andrew Loomis simplifies the head. And it's resonated with so many people because when you look at the human head, there's so much complexity there. Now, I'm not going to go through the entirety of, how to simplify this head, starting with a sphere, doing the brow line and the midline, and then chopping off the sides, and then doing the chin, all these things. It's actually a really fantastic way of moving through the head. You can check out videos by Proco that has simplified this even further on how to go through the process. Really beautiful way of simplifying the head. But this is just an example book that you can move through of how very complex forms are simplified in this certain way. And what I want to show you as I flip through this book, we're just looking at the imagery, right? And you can see as I go through this, we're adding more and more complexity. Now we're into the planes of the head. More and more complexity. We're looking at eye shape and the horizon line and how the brow and the nose and the ear and everything's kind of in perspective. We're adding on all kinds of information within, types of heads. I mean, look at the complexity in these heads, all the character within the mustache, and they're older or younger, male, female, all this kind of stuff. But look, now we're getting into anatomy of the head, simplicity to complexity, right? And now the specific forms of the head. It's a very good book if you're interested in it. Super good book for simplifying forms. So remember, Run, Spot, Run, Dr. Seuss. That's how we start out with language. Very simple idea. Then we repeat that over and over again. We get more complex with how we communicate and understand and read and things like that. The same is true for art when we're learning. But the difference with art is this, and I think we all do this pretty similarly, right? We quickly move through those books and dip in and out of them every now and then between sessions of painting the life that we want to paint, either from photos or from reality. We're going from a tutorial on landscapes to painting an actual landscape. The subject that we want to paint is tremendously complex. So we're looking at paintings of a landscape or paintings of a head or a figure or something like that, or someone trying to show you how to simplify these forms. And then we go into life drawing and we're hit with a tremendous amount of information. It's like someone just learning to read, starting with Dr. Seuss, then dipping into literary masters like Cormac McCarthy, or crazy complex poetry. The whole one image is worth 1,000 words or 1,000,000 words is the thing here, right? As hard as it is, it's also the natural progression of art, moving back and forth from trying to understand visual language through other teachers, then diving into the tremendous complexity of our subject and trying to make sense of it. And this is how we move through these things. It's like language, but at the same time, it's different than language because we have someone that says, oh, simplify the head this way. Thank you, Andrew Loomis. I'll do that. And then we look at a head in a completely different lighting scenario. Maybe it's completely flat because it's front lit. And we're like, I don't even know how to take that Loomis head and translate this head. So it goes from simplicity, complexity, simplicity, complexity. And the complexity is daunting. It's confusing. We have to take this language of simplification, or figure out how to take this language or idea of simplification on our own terms into what we're painting. And that's where I see the awesomeness and the amazingness that are the difference between, oh, that was a bad circle, the difference between this and this here. and that understanding and how different it is. So how can we make this easier? How can, what's the lesson here? What's the practical lesson here? Well, I wish it was as simple as just do these 1, 2, 3 things and you'll understand it and you'll get better. Just look at Loomis and do what he does and you'll get better. But it's not. It's never going to be that easy, unfortunately. It's just like reading and writing. How long did it take us to read and write and communicate with complexity to others? Years of our lives to get there, right? All the way up until well, at least for myself, all the way up until I reached college, and probably after that, where I'm able to speak into more than just grunts. That's me. But I do have some ways that I think that can help with this. And I think the very first thing is to understand this. To understand this idea that when we're looking at other artists, when we're looking at how they simplify the human head and everything that we're looking at, and then when we go into real life, whatever it is, still life, landscape, that we're going to be bombarded with a tremendous amount of complexity, and that it's okay, and that we need to figure out how to simplify it ourselves, our own way. And to understand that this is what we're doing. We're moving from simplicity in these books, or what Chris is trying to tell you, or other videos online, into tremendous complexity of the life around us. And it's going to be difficult. And to not say things like, I don't know why I can't get this. I mean, this person or this artist did it just fine. Why can't I do it? That's why it's like a tremendous amount of information. I mean, if we look at going back to this head versus the image, right? There's such subtlety there. And to be very specific, what I want to point out is where the front of the head begins and the side of the head ends. It's a really important part of the Loomis head. If we go back to the Loomis head, go back all these pages, and you could probably see, you see the simplification in so many different ways. Yeah, so here's well, that's not the whole process of the head. It's a bit more complex. Where's the moment where he does that? Actually, looking at this, I like the way Proco simplifies it better, honestly. But the separation from the front of the head to the side of the head is one of the most important things to learn, or to see, to begin to see in these complex images. So when we're looking at this, I know the one thing is there's this little point right here, right there. And I wish maybe I can zoom in. There's this little point right on our temple. When you can put your finger there, right, and you can feel kind of where the bone is, where it goes from front of the eye socket, and then boop, there's a bump, and it goes to the side. I have a very Paleolithic forehead, so it's a very definite front and side, but we can feel that bone, and it's right there. And then we go down this way, and probably you can see that small, subtle transition of value. So if I go like this and put it back, you can probably see that small, subtle transition of value there that defines the front of the head to the back of the head. And that's hard to see. And as we can see from this painting over here, there was some confusion of that. There's definitely lighter tone here and darker tone there. This person is seeing that, but that definite kind of separation that needed to be there was hard to see, very difficult to see, because it's full of subtle information. Yet when we're down here on this guy, it's oh, okay, this artist has already done it for us. We know the separation between the two. So understanding, oh, it's an image now, complexity, I have to think about it in simple terms, find that simplicity within all of that complexity. So important to just understand that. and understanding that there are infinite ways to simplify the complexity of the world. When we're looking at my painting here, this is definitely a simplification of, that image in all these different ways. I mean, like, I'm not painting that hand or these hands with tremendous photorealism, right? There's a pushing of simplification, and I've only gotten there to that understanding from doing this for years and years. So understanding that there's a whole bunch of ways to simplify everything. I see no more comments right now. That's cool. The other way that we can kind of move through this. So first is understanding that we're always moving from simplicity to complexity, and understanding how to simplify in our own ways. Understanding there are infinite ways to do that. We have to find our own way, right? I'm looking at this painting and going, it looks a little bit like how Nicholas Uribe would simplify these forms. So I need to find my own voice through that, right? And it's okay, because even if, let's say that we go to these Renaissance masters and we love how they simplify forms so much, how they really simplify stuff, and we can pull information from that. But eventually, as we're working through that, we have to kind of bring in our own sensibilities and change it up ourselves, which I think is really important. We don't want to be a copy of someone else. And then moving slowly through this, when, we're painting from a book, or we're painting from another painting, doing a master copy, right? We tend to move a little bit faster in some instances. But then when we go to these photos up here, now it's time to slow down. Okay, I really need to find these forms and figure out how to simplify them in my way, or simplify them in some way. It's very similar to looking at how Andrew Loomis will simplify a head and then begin to apply that to a bunch of heads. I understand the Loomis head, how that simplification in the process works. Now, let's take that simplification and look at a bunch of heads and then simplify it ourselves, right? But move slowly through that. The other one is matching the simplicity of other artists and teachers with the subject we want to paint. How would this artist simplify this head? So it's pretty much similar to what I just said. Like, if you're looking at my head, or you're looking at these busts here, it would be a fantastic lesson or exercise to look at these Renaissance busts and figure out, where the Loomis head simplicity would happen. I'm at a weird angle on this pad. I think, Loomis would do the terrible sphere there. Find this brow line, which, I'm going to be so bad at this. I'm trying to draw on a pad that I just bought. So, there's the sort of brow line. It would go there probably more than anything. The center line. And then I think, there's actually, I skipped a step. There's going to be this circle here that indicates the front of the head to the side of the head. And it should be right there. And then this kind of drop of this form down into the chin and here, and then it goes up. That's a really bad Loomis head over the top of that. But something like that, we start seeing the Loomis head overlaid on top of these very simplistic forms. And then always, whatever we're looking at, whether it's going to be heads or hands or a bouquet of flowers or big fluffy trees with a million different leaves in them, starting with the bigger forms first. When I started with this painting, it was the entirety of the contour, drawing out the contour of everything as much as I could. For example, this hand was a big mitten, I just connected all the fingers into one kind of arch and these knuckles into an arch, to the thumb, and it was just big kind of outline, and then breaking that up into smaller forms. So starting with the larger forms, like the contour of the entire tree, and then trying to see the shadow shapes in a very big form on that tree with all this complexity that it has. Bigger forms first. And finally, to help us out with all this, simplifying everything else that we have going on, right? One of the things that we do is when we, go to a very complex subject matter is, and this is probably not the best example, but let's say that we're looking at images of people, right? Like this is a bust, so it's already black and white. There is some kind of warmth within it, right? Some color within it. And actually this, another person online did really well with this here because they just kept it gray. They weren't trying to get all of these subtle, warm, grayish tones within this head. They just said, you know what, black and white, I'm going to simplify the color. So we're just dealing with black and white, and then just go straight with that color and try and figure out the shapes of this form. Another way of simplifying, draw. We just start with drawing. We can simplify even further by looking at, how modern this is today. We can print things out on a sheet of copy paper, and we can look at like this head here, and we can go, you know what, let's do some exercises of form and figure out like cross contours of this form, drawing cross contours on these heads and try to understand how this form kind of passes through space. Let me zoom in on that so we can see what's happening. I love this exercise to really understand form. Oof, that's probably not the best thing, because it kind of goes this way and then slightly down and over. So cross contours over things. So we're simplifying all of our tools down into just drawing, just black and white, no color, not worried about edges. Maybe we're not working in paint, or we're working in paint that we definitely have a better handle on. To make this whole thing more complex would be if we know we need to understand drawing and form, and yet we start with oil paint with a palette of 13, 15 different colors, and we've barely oil painted, right? We would make the whole process so complex, and we'd be dealing with not just understanding drawing and form, but also color, edges, paint manipulation, brushes, dealing with all of this extra that's pulling us away from what we should be doing, or the one thing that we need to work on. So simplifying down into just specifics of what we want to work on. I'll move through all those again. Understand that this is what we're doing. We're moving from learning simplicity, learning simply through books and tutorials, and then we're moving to very complex life and images or real life in front of us, and understanding that, we need to overlay simplicity on top of this. Understanding there's an infinite ways to simplify anything that we're looking at. We need to find our way, moving slowly through these. Even if, you're doing a painting and there's some forms that you're like, I understand that right away. Still slow down, figure it out, do it really well, or as well as you can, and move slowly through it. Matching the simplicity of what we learned to actual subject matter. We learned the Loomis head and the idea of it, the idea of that simplification. Let's, in a simple way, take it through a whole bunch of heads. As just an example, maybe you're reading a book about landscapes and how to paint landscapes. We can take how they simplify something and start trying to work it through our landscapes. Start with those bigger forms first, the big outline of the tree, the outline of the head, the difference between the front of the head and the side of the head, just those big ideas, the shadow shapes versus the light side, and then move into complexity after that. And then simplify everything else that we're working on so that we are kind of dialed in to one thing, to one specific thing that we're working on, and work your way through that way. that was a lot. That was a lot, but it was fantastic to look at this work from another person online that they sent it to me. Thank you so much for that. 0. There we go. So thank you for sharing your work and allowing me to share it on my streams so that other people could benefit from this. And thank you for like really opening my eyes and seeing this a bit clearly. I think it's going to help me understand my work a lot better, and hopefully it'll help me understand how to teach others a bit better too. Hey, Doobie. Thank you so much. Good stuff, Chris. I appreciate that. Now, the rest of the stream, I'm going to be painting and chatting and talking and thinking about simplification and thinking about this painting in a simple way and trying hard not to kind of denigrate myself continually for taking so long on this painting. I wish it wasn't taking that long. And now I'm really warm. I'm going to turn on my fan. Yeah, this is why I like doing smaller paintings. This is 8 by 12. And usually, like the last few paintings was 6 by 9, so even smaller. And then before that, was 5 by 7. So small works, right? I like moving through paintings, getting to the next. And I can feel myself thinking right now, oh, when can I get to the next painting, please? Please, I want to get to the next painting. But I also have to like go, okay, where does this painting need to, where do I need to, move through this painting, get it done, not like lose interest on it and stop on it halfway through and then have it hanging in my room or anywhere else. And then go, oh man, I should have really worked on that painting. So, we got these two little marks here, which were kind of annoying. Those are wrong value. And so I'm going to have to go over that. But what's really bugging me right here is like this corner up here. It's just not done. Not much happening to it. I'm so happy with this hand. I zoomed in yesterday, or not, day before yesterday on this hand. And I guess the one thing I'm trying to say is like, oh, hey, Michael, welcome. It looks so bad on the stream because it's 1080p recording on this camera here. And, when I zoom in, you can see so much more. Like I look at the painting itself and I'm like, oh, it's so much better than what I can see on the stream. I'm trying to pick all the cat hair off of it. I don't know why I even try anymore. I mean, that's part of my paintings. Having the cats on there. Okay, let's go for it. This big shape here of their, I keep on want to say clavicle, but it's not clavicle. It's a shoulder blade. The shoulder blade there. I want to get that figured out. I want to get it a little bit more subtle. So let's work on that first. Definitely need to light it up, need to warm it up a little bit, especially on the edges, and fix that basic shape of it. I can see a little bit of drawing mark there that I need to bring back for that shoulder of this figure. And it goes that way. So we'll start with that. And what I'm going to mix up first is some gray. The one thing that I've been learning a lot on this painting is just how much gray is in here, or at least that I see in here in the painting. And so many times I've started when I'm on the painting, like I'm beginning it for the day or beginning the session for the day. And I'll start with this like cadmium red right out of the tube and make up an orange with like a yellow next to it, which I don't have any yellow ochre out. And then I'll end up putting all kinds of other paint inside that pile just to neutralize that paint. Now I'm going to do it differently. I'm learning. Holy crap, I'm learning. And I'm just going to start with a gray and then just barely tint it with other colors. I mean, there's a lot of bright colors in here. Yeah, definitely down there. But from what I'm seeing up here and what I want there is just going to be more gray, lots more grays. And I paint pretty thin most of the time. I've always been trying to get better at that, paint a little bit thicker, get that kind of lusciously thick paint on there. But because I paint thin, it's going to be easy to go over these grays if they're too gray and I need to add in some color to it, which I kind of need to do right away. I need a more sienna, burnt sienna type tone. And I know my ivory black and my cadmium red light will get there pretty quickly. Which it does get a little bit darker that way. Thinking about the bigger shapes always. It took, for years, there's so many paintings that I've done where I moved through those paintings in this very detailed way. You come into other artists like Richard Schmid, because I was learning from Richard Schmid a lot in his book and not copying from his paintings, because for some reason, I never really enjoyed doing master copies. After looking at those paintings by another person today or the past couple days, I can see like the importance of doing that, like doing master copies and really understanding more like deeper how these masters are simplifying forms. And that's really what it is. Like, you're not learning how to paint their forms exactly. You're learning how they moved through the complexity of life and have understood form in their way and drawing and color and different things, but how they simplify things, like their sensibilities, which could be really good and really bad at the same time, because if we take on those sensibilities too much, we become, a copy of them. And then we have to go, okay, well, who am I? I've got to this point, but how would I do this? How would I simplify things? And sometimes it can feel like starting over in a way. But I was doing a lot of work where I was looking at Richard Schmid a lot and his book, Alla Prima 2. And here I was taking Richard Schmid, Schmid, there's no T in it. Being pedantic there, sorry. But here I was looking at Richard Schmid of like 80 something years old, maybe he was 70 at the time I started like reading his book, or when he created the book, 70 years, probably a majority of that, I don't know, dip into that red, majority of that, 50 years of painting and doing artwork. And I'm just seeing like the results of that. And he's starting paintings in a very detailed way, kind of thinking about bigger forms, right? And I've always said this, if I'm telling you, hey, you need to start paintings thinking about the bigger forms, and then you look at Richard Schmid that doesn't do that, and you're like, well, Richard Schmid doesn't do it. Why should I do it? There's a million ways of moving through this. Every kind of, any teacher says do this, or any person says do this, there's 100 other people saying, no, I don't need to do that, and making amazing work. But as Richard Schmid is moving through these paintings in a detailed way, and I'm just looking at him at 70 years old or however old he was, I'm forgetting all of that time and effort that took to get to that point, so he was able to understand form and painting in his way and be able to move through it that way. And so I was taking not only on the complexity of the subject matter that I was looking at, but also the complexity of an artist that had been painting for a tremendous amount of time and trying to do it that way. It's kind of like, when we meet an older person on the street or in life and things like that. It's how, if we know how old they are, I always try and think, wow, that's a lot of life, right? Because there's a tendency, and I've done this for years, where we just take those individuals exactly how they are and we feel like, oh, they've always been this age and they've always been exactly like this. No, we're so different throughout the years, so different throughout time. Like, I wonder what Richard Schmidt's paintings looked like at the beginning. They probably were very simple, started out with very simple forms. And then eventually, after 20 or 30 years of painting, he developed this way of moving through a painting, starting with complexity. And the only way he was able to do that was because he had all that training beforehand. So we always have to kind of think about that. Like, we're looking at, like, another person was looking at all these Renaissance artists, they have been painting for decades before the painting that we look at, right? They didn't just start out painting that way. Wasn't like they didn't have bad paintings. I don't think there's any artist on the planet or any artist in history that didn't have like a whole bunch of bad paintings before they got to their good paintings. Actually, a better way of saying that is I don't think there's any artist on the planet that moved through years and years of misunderstanding or confusion with painting the world around us before they gain that understanding through a lot of work. I like saying it that way because when we say good and bad paintings, like, what does that mean, right? Has it dried yet? Can you still erase with palette knife? No, like, all dry. Like, I touched this real quickly. I mean, it's there. Like, if I wanted to scrape out this little bit, no. Like, I'd have to dig into the paper, like pull up the pulp of the paper. Super dry. Which is okay. No worries. I've planned for the general white of the paper in the places that I want. And if I have to go over some of this with titanium white, it's not a big deal. Not a big deal. It's one of those things where, we can plan as much as we want to try and come out with something that we really love. But at the end of the day, most plans don't survive first contact with reality, right? The interesting thing is, painting like this, and I was introduced, not introduced, but really kind of, what's the word for it? I was enamored with transparency and leaving a lot of the paper showing through when I was painting with Yupo paper. YUPO paper. Hey, Cookie Monster. How you doing? Welcome. So a person was so nice, this was months ago, sent me Yupo paper, a whole pack of Yupo paper, because they wanted me to try it. And I'm so glad they did, because I did a whole bunch of paintings on Yupo paper. It was mainly during my April painting challenge, so April. And it was frustrating in a lot of ways because it's extremely smooth and extremely non-absorbent because it's a polypropylene. It's not a pulpy paper. And as I was painting on it, like, if you're in the shadow areas and you want to lay down something a little bit darker, you end up pulling up paint easy, like a lot easier than putting paint down. And I'm like, oh man, what a pain. Come on. I just want to put down paint, but I keep lifting up paint because it's, it was so non-absorbent. But then I started seeing like all these beautiful areas where it was just like just a tiny bit of paint and the white would show through a little bit and they would glow. And I'm like, oof, that's really beautiful. And so I've been trying to do a lot of that. I mean, think about watercolor. It's really kind of a watercolor way of working, where you're trying to leave the white that you want in the places that you want and don't touch it. Of course, watercolor artists are much better at it than I am. I haven't worked through that at all. But as I'm doing this, I'm working in this way where I'm trying to leave as much as the white of the paper as I can. I'm like, I wonder if I would be, if I could make maybe a painting in watercolor because of that, because I'm working in this way. But there's so much to watercolor. I probably doubt it. I think it would be still way out of my league. Watercolor. I look at Nick Alm, ALM. Check out his artwork. We talked about Nick Alm once before. The most fantastic, amazing thing about Nick is he can move from oil painting and do just beautiful, beautiful oil paintings. And then, he'll move into watercolor and it's like just as gorgeous, just as amazing, just as mind-blowing. You're like, what? Or John Singer Sargent is the same way. I mean, a lot of people, and, me included, I think he was a better watercolor artist than he was oil painter. Years ago, I had this book. We moved to Hawaii at one point, and we ended up downsizing a lot of stuff when we came back because we thought it'd be cheaper. And so I got rid of a lot of art books, which kind of sucks. Kind of wish I had some of them back. Have to rebuy them again, but had this whole book of John Singer Sargent's watercolors, and they're so good. I mean, like, just amazingly good. I mean, I don't know watercolor that much, but yeah, they were blowing me away. The ability for those artists to move from watercolor to oil like it's nothing. I feel like you have to open up your head and pull out one brain and then, dip into the jar full of fluid in the other brain and put that brain in and then begin painting in watercolor, right? It's like, how do you change out your brain that way? I don't know. I still find oil painting tremendously difficult. Not only that, like, there's a lot of artists, maybe you guys here that I'm talking to. I know there's at least one or two of you on here that are like, oh yeah, I dip into watercolor and oil paint and gouache and acrylic and all these different mediums all the time. And I feel like oil paint itself, like, that's a lifetime of learning. Like, I don't want to bring in another medium at all. Like, oh my God, like, all right, now I have another lifetime piled on top of that to figure it out. I mean, there are some mediums that I think are pretty close, like gouache versus oil, pretty close, have a lot of similarities to them. I mean, water mixable oils and oils, if you can compare them as two different mediums, I think they're pretty much the same medium. I mean, they're pigment suspended in oil. Is just one of the oils have been adjusted so that water will break it apart, those oils apart. It's essentially the same exact thing, especially when it dries. It's the same thing. So I'm not talking much about what I'm doing here. Just trying to establish something interesting up here, right? I'm going off of what I'm seeing or what's happening in the image. But more than anything at the moment now, I just want the paint to be interesting. This is a concept that I didn't like I didn't know was a thing until Nicholas Uribe helped me out with that. He was talking to me once about a painting that he had done. It was a Craven painting. It's just absolutely amazing. And he was like, "Yeah, I was painting this one hand because it was out of his head. I mean, just making it up out of his head. It was crazy. He's just an amazing artist. Like, how can you make that up out of your head?" But there was one hand that was giving him a lot of trouble. He's like, "Yeah, I didn't even know how to paint that hand." And he was like, "Okay, fine. We'll just not worry about it. It's not close to, it's like on the very bottom of the painting, not very close to the subject or the focal point of the painting. So I'm just going to make the paint look interesting and make it look cool." And I was like, "What? You can do that? You can just focus on making the paint look interesting?" Yeah, totally. Why not? I mean, that's honestly, we take Rothko and Jackson Pollock and, abstract expressionist artists, and we look at their paintings as a whole. But when you think about what they were doing, for the most part, they're just making paint look interesting, and they are killing it, doing it well, so well. And I got a comment from Twitch. Yay! What is going on? Something's happening with my mouse. Oh, I know what it is. The comment on Twitch is a spammer, so I have to go to Twitch and I have to hit the stupid little spam thing. Go away. You're banned from. Ugh. You think they would get a better handle on that. It's like the same thing over and over again. Anyway, thank you, Twitch, for being that way. So, yeah, just up here trying to make this paint look good and subsume some of the cat hair that's there as well into the paint so that my cats are hopefully memorialized for hundreds of years. Honestly, I'm going to tell you guys the truth. The only reason why I'm painting and trying to get better at painting so that I can memorialize my cats. That's it. That's it. I'm not trying to, be this amazing artist. I just love the idea that hundreds of years from now, hopefully, maybe they're like, "Oh, we got a Bevan painting we're trying to restore." And the most important thing about a Bevan painting is you got to keep the cat hair where it is. So whenever, you got the little Q-tip or cotton swab and you're removing all the dirt and grime that is collected on the painting for 100 years, make sure you don't move that cat hair out of the way. It has to be there. Yes. And then, they could catalog the years. So this is the kid years. I had a cat, the kid and Sully years. Sully and the kid were our two cats at that time. This was the Winnie years of my paintings. And now it's the LaFay and Vincent years. Yeah. And, people come to my retrospectives 100 years after the artist is dead, and all the paintings are organized in a way that they don't care about the paintings. Like half of them are upside down because, who cares about the painting? And they have pictures of my cats, like little icons or emojis, like down at the bottom right of the painting. That way people can identify like the year that the cat, the painting was created. Oh, okay, this is a Vincent year painting. Fantastic. Oh, you could see the Vincent hair in there. Fantastic. Yay. And people go and, that's the little plaque to the side. It's not talking about the painting. No one cares about that. the little plaque is pointing out like the hairs, like where you can find the little hairs and what part of the cat the hairs have come from. You know, this is the butt hair of Vincent. Thank you for joining me on this journey through my brain. I appreciate it. You look at my subscriber count and all of a sudden it went down by 300. That's how you know when you're truly being yourself, when you just like kind of let loose and all of a sudden a lot of people go away. They're like, oh, wow, okay. No, I didn't know that this person was mentally deranged. I need to like stop listening to them. Like, oh, this is me. Okay, I found authenticity here. I love that blue. There's like shadow over here. It's kind of like the hand on this arm. And for some, oh man, I just noticed like a whole edge of that painting you can't see. I'm going to stand up and do this because I know as soon as I like undo it, it's going to fall down. Give me a second. All right. Look, now you can see that. Now you can see that. Nice. Nice. Yeah, just trying to make the paint look interesting. I think it's a wonderful concept, right? This idea of thinking about the paint. We tend to not do that. We tend to, or at least maybe I don't. I don't tend to do that. I need to make sure to keep my language so that it's like talking about me and not assuming that everybody else is like me, right? But I tend to, or have for years and years, I'm like, you know, yeah, paint is paint. Who cares? You know? But it has its sensibilities to it. It has texture, it has thickness, it has everything that it is. And seeing that as an important part of the creation process. Like, hey, guess what? You can just put paint down and it not be anything, yet still be very interesting. Look how interesting that paint itself is. And that is possible. It's like a whole other level that can open up when, you know, when we're painting. You're like, oh yeah, this is a whole other way of seeing art. You're like, wow, you know, that's a really awful head that you did, Chris. It was just terrible. I mean, it doesn't look anything like that person. But how the paint was applied, oh, masterful, you know? Use the M word. Chris, I think the colors in the photo are a bit more towards yellow. Yeah. I mean, comparatively, 100%. Yeah. Like if you can look at the shoulder blade right here and then like the shadow side of it on the female figure, the figure with the bra, right? I mean, it's more, I mean, you can lean toward a little bit towards greener. And I pushed it towards like a bluish gray, right? Yeah. Yeah, you definitely noticed that. 100%. I'm definitely doing that. And it's an intentional thing. Like, I'm not going, oh, crap, it's off. No, like, I'm loving, like, this right here. I'm seeing that green, you know, I'm seeing that color. Like, it's very different. And then I'm going, oh, I'm going to push that. And the other thing that I'm just kind of holding out on that I want to do, you know, this CAD red light. And, oh, I got to mine into this. and this orange up here. And I need to be careful with this because look at that. Look at this orange. If I put that down, let's just go for it. Screw it. Ooh. This is so intense. Tone it down. I can't hear myself think. It's so loud. So I'll add some blue to it. Add the complementary. Bring it down. And a little bit of white to lighten it up. Look how much I grade that out so quickly. Sometimes I'm proud of myself for understanding color in a simple way. And then other times I do something and I'm like, what the heck? I don't even, like, you weren't even looking, Chris. Anyway. Yeah, there's a reflected light here of the thumb that's reflecting into the shadow in this very orange color. I really like that, but I don't want it to be so intense that it's kind of competing with down here. I just want it to be like it's hinting at what's going on there. It's like, hey, there's some reflection there. It's really cool. Chris thought it was interesting, so he's going to point it out. But definitely adjusting the colors, pushing them in different ways. Now, could I copy it exactly? I'm not certain. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you guys and be like, yeah, I could definitely do that. Like I did it years ago. You know, one of those things we tend to do, and I'm thinking about Picasso with this, because a lot of artists do this with Picasso, is they say, oh, well, you know, Picasso did representational portraits at the beginning before he got into the abstract. So he knew how to paint well. You know, to try and prop Picasso up a little bit more like he needs to be, right? And say, oh, well, he knew the fundamentals of art first and then decided to move away from them. No. Did he do like fundamental works at the beginning? Yeah, for a little bit. Did he do them really well? No, he didn't. Like right away, he was like, oh, no, I'm going to go into abstraction. Like right away did that. Like we don't need Picasso to understand those fundamentals to be able to look at Picasso and go, oh, now he's a greater person. No, there's no beating Picasso. I'm sorry. He's, you know, changed the world of art in a million different ways, beautiful ways and fantastic ways. And just within all of his abstraction and what was it? The collage he did and the, what do you call it? The, I don't know how many isms he invented, but a lot of them. Like, I do not need to move Picasso through this like fundamental idea of representational art to make him be better than he is. No. All on his own with the amazingness that he did his entire life. We're good. He's good. But no, I bring that up, that little tangent, because, I'm moving away from representation a little bit. You know, I've always talked about this train ride that we're on. And I started out with a lot of really detailed paintings. You know, trying to be as photorealistic as I could, you know, to describe what I'm seeing as exact as the photo as I could, and moving through things that way and trying to understand life in that way. And then I'm still on this train and I haven't quite haven't figured out what train station I want to get off on. You know, I could make it all the way to like the Rothko end of the line, right? Or Pollock end of the line or something like that, where it's just like abstract expressionism. you know, big painting, dripping things, throwing paint around. No, that's not going to be me. I'm too clean. I would have to put on like a big Tyvek suit or something like that if I was going to throw paint around. I don't want it on me. Weird like that. But yeah, I'm definitely making choices to simplify and thinking about paint and paint application more than anything. But I'm not going to tell you like, oh yeah, I could totally do it exactly the way you see it in the photo. No, maybe I could try, but I'd probably fail in a, and go, oh, okay, no, I just, I want to do it this way, and maybe part of me is making excuses, You may know by now, if you listen to, any of my streams, I'm a person that is going to tell you right away, like, maybe I'm making excuses here because I can't paint that hand exactly the way it is. So I'm simplifying it a lot to like make it abstract and make it look good in a different way because that's beyond my ability. Maybe I'm doing it that way. That's a definite possibility. But, when I think about it, no, I really love this hand. I really love that. I love this hand. This hand, not so much. I don't really like you that much, hand. I'm sorry, hand. Don't cry, hand. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But that one's better. Bigger brother's better than you. It's okay. One day I'll paint another hand better. But I'm really loving the simplicity of things. Just really, really enjoying that. If this takes me down a different road, I'll just blame Nicholas. It's all his fault. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. I just thought I'm painting this little bra strap in because it's really interesting the way it's twisted in like caught light. And there's a bit of reflected light. Again, this kind of orangey color in the shadow area here. That is just fantastic. That I love so much. That like little bit. But as I do that, I'm like, well, maybe I have to do the strap over here too. And I kind of don't want to do that. Maybe I don't need to do the strap. And then also there's this tangent here that I need to be very careful of. One day we'll talk about tangents. Oh, Kelesabel? Oh my gosh, I'm going to kill your name. I'm sorry. Kelesabel. Oh, I bet you it sounds beautiful. But I'm just butchering your name. I'm sorry. But they say, I love thinking about paint, possibly too much. As long as you don't think about it like it's, a nice little push pop or squeeze, like one of those packets of like you squeeze out some like Jello or something. Don't think about it that way. It doesn't taste good. Don't go that route. But I don't think it's bad to think about it too much. I'm not sure if we can. Actually, now that I say that, in my opinion, probably the worst way to think about paint, like if you're thinking about it too much, if you're like going, I need to try all the paint brands. This paint brand is going to be better than that paint brand. And then all of a sudden you're like, $10,000 deep into buying all this paint and you've only done like 2 or 3 paintings. Like you could totally open up an art store with all that paint. You got so much paint. A friend of mine, her home, she has a beautiful studio. It's so fantastic. And buys super expensive paint and has it hung up in these beautiful ways. Like and I have, my paint is in a pile on the floor next to my feet, my paint tubes. Hers are hanging up perfectly and they're ordered and, oh, it's gorgeous. I go in there and it's like going in an art store. like a candy store. I do want that. One day I'll have that. This is my wall of displayed paint. You know, haven't used any of it. It's just displayed. That would be fun. Think about using paint as much as you can. You know, I could probably, you know, I'm looking at that. You know, we got this. Here's a bad tangent, guys. You know, we have the thumb, and then we have that cord coming out of the top of the thumb. You know, the strap of the bra coming out of the top of the thumb. And is it part of the thumb or is it separate from the thumb? You know, it's like continued on. It's like, you ever see photos of people and they're right in front of a pole and the pole is like right behind their head. It's like kind of dividing them in half, you know, it's not a good tangent. Or I know you've seen those pictures online, the memes where you look at it at first and it's like this weird configuration and it's like, oh, that guy's wearing a skirt and heels, but it's like the way that two people have kind of meshed with each other, it looks like the guy's wearing the other person's clothing, you know, those kind of tangents. So that's kind of happening there. Do I want to keep it? Now I have to decide if I want to keep that or not. Okay, let's move on with the thumb a little bit more. Maybe if I get some more interesting paint in that thumb. And here I am doing this thing again. Look how thin. That's just like thin. That's nothing. Super thin paint, Chris. Stop. Mix up more. Don't be lazy. You can get that color back. No problem. You've done it a million times. Stop being lazy. Mix up the paint. Is this the right value? No, it's a little bit darker than I want. So let's lighten it up and warm it up a little bit. You read it as separate? Oh, good. I appreciate that, Doobie. Because I do want to keep it. I totally want to keep it. I like that little moment. Even if it doesn't make sense. Heck, a lot of this painting isn't making sense, right? But I like the idea that it doesn't have to make sense. That it's just interesting and cool. Like I get a feeling from it, but I don't know what it is. You know, it's like, oh, that doesn't make sense, but it's cool. It's interesting. We can do that. You know, it's the kind of paintings where individuals, people that are not into the world of art, you know, they don't collect art, they don't look at art, they don't know anything about any famous artist or anything close to that. And so they come into galleries and your paintings and they think, you know, the purpose of art is to make it look like, you know, life and to bring in, for lack of better terminology, a copy of life, you know, a reproduction of, you know, the beauty of figures or portraits or landscapes or still life. And then all of a sudden they're bombarded by this weird artist that's doing like figure stuff and like pushing the boundaries of shape and form and melding things together in interesting ways. And they're thinking about interesting paint and cat hair. And this person's like, I don't get it. And they walk on. They're like, that guy's crazy. You know, that's who I want to be. I want to be that. I want to be that person where, like, you know, there are individuals that look at it and go, I don't get it. You know, yes, awesome. I'm glad you don't, you know. Not that it's not for you, because I would like for you to get it. I would like for you to understand it, but it needs to be moved beyond that, you know. There's certain times when you get the layperson, is that a good term? A person that's not into art at all, that, they come into your artwork and they're like, I don't get it. There's times when that is a compliment. And you're like, okay, good. Yeah. It's not supposed to be like one and done. Like I move into it and it's like understanding is instant. Like looking at a photo, a photo of a beautiful landscape, which I enjoy as well. But it's not meant for that kind of understanding. It's meant for people to go, oh, look at that shape of paint. Oh, hate the whole painting except for that one little shape. So Cookie Monster says, Chris, I'm going to paint with oil paints without using solvents. Do you have any ideas or advice about that? Yes. Number one. Of course I have advice about it. Are you kidding me? 100 portraits. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, dude. That'll be fine. Kels is fine? Okay, I'll call you Kels from now on. Thank you, Kels. 100 portraits. Oof. Okay, I have a lot of information for you. Hopefully you're ready. This is being recorded, so you can come back to it later. I have a lot of opinions for you because I'm a very opinion person, Now, number one, the one thing that painting without solvents is going to not gain for you, that's going to be the biggest problem with it. So I'm going to give you the problem with it right away, is if you've painted in oil before and how you love to start painting is like, or how painting is like, you're on a canvas, you start out with like a burnt umber with solvent and you draw out with these very long strokes. You can mass in really quickly that way. And then it dries really fast or gets set really fast so paint can go over it, like thicker paint without solvent goes over it quickly and easily in the same session. Now, when you paint without solvents, it's impossible to get that again. Okay, so if that's the way you love to paint, without solvents, you're going to have a problem there, okay? If you're like, it must feel this way, you're going to be disappointed. So be careful on that, okay? But if you're willing to let go of solvents and put your health before that feeling, then it will feel different. And just understand that and then just kind of keep moving through it. You'll get used to it, okay? That's the only thing that I found with painting without solvents, that any other medium you try, whatever, just does not repeat it. The closest you can get is with like water mixable oils, and they're thinner or water, because it'll dry quick. You'll have the same kind of feeling at the beginning. So, okay. So be aware of that, number one. Now, number two, oils without solvents. And this is based on like if you've painted before, how you like to paint again. It is going to feel different, but it's the combination of surface, the paint you're using, okay, and the brush you're using at the same time. All three of those things will change how it feels when you put brush to canvas. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you're using Gamblin paint and it's really thick, and it usually is, may not be. I mean, not all tubes are the same, right? But just as an example, if you're using Gamblin paint and it's really thick and you have this synthetic brush and you don't use any medium, no solvent, no nothing, it's like trying to pick up a rock with a feather. Like the feather's just kind of hitting the rock and kind of moving off of it. And you're like, oh, what am I doing? How can I move this around? It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, right? Because you're using a very soft brush or a softer brush with a very thick paint on maybe a very absorbent texture. So at that point, you're like, okay, well, let me try changing my brush up. Let me see if I go with a hog's hair bristle because this paint is pretty thick. It'll help me move things around. Maybe a smoother surface, a less absorbent surface. That will definitely help with that too. And it's all about feeling of the paint, okay? How it feels, it will adjust. Let me know if you're going to be using any mediums whatsoever, and if you are, what medium. And if you say liquid, I'm going to scream. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to scream. But let's not use liquid. It's a alkyd medium liquid. It dries really fast. It's a gel, but as soon as you put liquid on your palette, your brain starts to deteriorate instantly. No, I'm kidding. I don't know that. I'm making that up. But that's what it feels like to me. So let me know if you're going to use any medium, because for years I used the non-solvent medium by Gamblin. It's still good. Anytime I need a gel medium, I'll throw that on, right? But that connection between the brush, the surface, and the paint you're using. So if your paint's too thick, maybe try like M. Graham. Not going to use mediums, I think. Okay, good. So you're dealing with the paint right out of the tube. Every different paint manufacturer has a different viscosity for their paint. M. Graham, very fluid. From my experience, Gamblin, very thick. Right down the middle is Winsor & Newton, Phoenix Artist Oils, Michael Harding, are right down the middle. Very buttery, beautiful paint. A little bit more like higher viscosity is, or lower viscosity, like fluid is Rembrandt's, a bit more fluid, right? But understanding that, like, oh, I want something more fluid, change your paint, right? You don't have to add a medium. You could look at different manufacturers. Of course, you're like, oh, that's going to be more expensive, right? So medium is also a possibility on that. What else? There was a few things I was thinking about. Do you have any ideas or advice about that? And I have a kitten yelling at me. Hi, kitten. Do you want to be on stream? You want to show people how cute you are? Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Hold on. Come here, baby. I have to pull you up here without knocking any of this over. Hi. Hi. Oh, oh, oh. He wants to be on my shoulder. Look. Okay. I'll be right back. I'm going to think more about what I want to tell you while I take care of her. Look how cute she is. Yeah. You're going to be immortalizing my paintings, aren't you? This is La Fée. It's French for the fairy. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay. I have a large box of different oil paints of varying quality. My project will be very experimental. Good. That's fantastic that you have a variety of quality or type. Like when you're painting without solvents, that's when the dependency, or without solvents or mediums in general, that's when like the surface, brush, and viscosity of paint becomes really important. And understanding that's the one thing, like when I moved away from solvents and mediums in particular, and the only reason why I was able to move away from mediums is because I I began to understand like the difference in these different brands of paint and going, oh, I'm just going to be moving through like a different brand when I need it rather than complicating things with a medium. And the mediums do complicate things. They really do. And especially if you want opaque paint, adding a medium to anything is going to remove that opacity right away. That's part of it. And well, some mediums don't, but it becomes so important, those three connections. And so the awareness of that the feeling of that paint is going to change depending on those three things is a whole world of interest there. It's so much fun. You put out a alizarin crimson in one paint brand and you put out one in another and you're like, whoa, that is so different. Like it's same exact color, but completely different feel. And you'll begin to move through your painting in certain ways where you're like, I need to have thick paint here. It needs to be very opaque. And then in other places, you're like, I need transparency here. And so not only are you looking at different paint brands for different viscosity to achieve what you need, but you're also going, okay, how can I use a different brush or have a different surface for the next time to improve that idea in a different way? Everything else becomes a bit more important. We're too often, I think, artists lean on medium to adjust everything about their paint. And that's the good thing about it, is because depending on, regardless of what surface or what brush you're on, you add different mediums to your paint to change its viscosity whatsoever throughout the entire painting process. And you get what you want, like within it. That could be a positive or negative. I like simplifying and not having to deal with that, the mediums, right? And maybe I should have more medium to really understand why I make that choice or have made that choice in my life to kind of go back to it. But what it does open up is not only a better understanding of paint, brush, and surface and that connection, but also the individualized idea of specific brushes, specific paint brands, specific surfaces that you can work on. If you are planning to do 100 portraits, this is a perfect opportunity to say, you know what, within this, I'm going to have raw, like cold press paper, raw hot press paper. I'm going to try some UPO paper. I'm going to have some GAC 100 for coatings on some paper. I'm going to have some PVA size for try that coating on some paper. I know I'm like going to spend all your money, right? I have canvas. I have panels. I have all these different things. I have, cardboard that I'm going to paint on. Everything. You have all these different possibilities. Like, I'm going to move through these 100 paintings and I'm going to get into something else that's really important, because you got this big plan, right? And when I'm talking about these different materials is going to help with that. But if you can say, this is going to be not only making 100 of these portraits, paintings, hopefully they're small, hopefully they're not too big. Because if you're like, oh, they're all 18 by 24, hopefully you work quickly within that, because that, 18 by 24, 100 portraits, 10 years later, I'd be like, hey, Cookie, what number are you on? Right? It could take you for a while, but if they're smaller, it's an iterative approach where you're moving through things, you're learning on each and every one. And like your improvement on something like that is like this, like, bam, just like tremendous improvement right away, because it's so iterative. It's like you're paying attention on each painting. Oh man, that surface did this, that paint did this, that brush did this. My drawing needs to be better on that. This has to be better on this. Let's try it on the next one. The next painting, you're like getting better, getting better, getting better. It's an amazing way to work, having a big idea like that. And if you have all these different materials, what they equate to is not only learning surface, brush, oil paint in all these different ways, but it's also interest. Like interest, not as in like compounded interest within your bank account. Interest as in motivation, as in drive, as in fun. Because it's 100 paintings. And you'll get through to 20 or 25, and then you're like, oh, I'm still kind of interested, but I'm having some trouble being motivated and keeping doing this. But I'm only through 20 or 25, and boy, why did I ever start this big thing? But if you're like, oh, I tried Yupo paper and I'm having a lot of fun with this, and then you move through like 5 or 6 paintings with Yupo paper, and you're like, this is really interesting. Then after about 7 or 8, you start seeing like the negatives for it. And you're like, I'm not sure. Let me see if I try like a cold press or a hot press watercolor paper with PVA size on it, see what kind of feeling that would give. Now you're onto a whole new interest, and that's going to like move you through another 5 or 10 paintings of like interesting stuff. And it's inexpensive, especially if you're on paper and using cheap brushes and stuff. Maybe you buy like one tube of Michael Harding Amazing Paint or Old Holland that's like $60 or something, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna have some fun with this one. That'll take you through a whole bunch of other paintings, of like keeping that interest and motivation going. So they really, this idea of being cognizant of your materials, how you're working, how you've completed things, where to get better, always asking those questions at the end of every painting, like what went well, what needs work, how can I improve on the next one? Oh man, not only will you improve really fast, get better really fast. Now I'm looking at that thumb and it's elongated too much, but it's okay. Does it look malformed? No, I think it's fine. This shadow needs to get smaller, but it doesn't feel like a bad thumb. No, as soon as I put that line in there, something about the thickness at the end needs to happen. I want to thicken it out more. Sorry, sidetrack, brain. But Chris, wouldn't the quality of my 100 portraits improve if I painted them all on real linen of the same size? No. No. Like, no. It's not materials. There is no material on this planet that's ever going to make you a better artist. That is 100% unequivocally, objectively true. And I know a lot of people can argue with me on that and will say like, no, you paint on linen, you're going to be a better painter. No, it will never make you a better painter. You have a $600 brush, it will never make you a better painter. You have $10,000 worth of the best paint ever. No, it's never going to make you a better painter. And then here's my logic within that. I'll give you my logic and my explanation of that, because I can't say something like that and just go, oh, let me go back to my painting. Yeah, that would be terrible, right? So let's take a young person that's just starting out painting, okay? And they haven't painted anything in oil. They don't have any experience with it. And let's give them the best materials they can possibly have. Are they going to make good paintings? No. They're not. They don't understand those materials. They don't understand the nuance in those materials. A person just starting out doesn't understand the difference between Winton Artist Oils as a student brand and much more expensive oils or very expensive brushes or very expensive surfaces. They don't understand the nuance within that. But you take a master artist like Sean Lay. Oh, God, Sean Lay. You guys, Sean Lay. I have to type their name in chat. I forget how to spell Lay. You take Sean Lay, okay? And you could give him like a stick, a rock, and some mud. And he'll make a freaking beautiful painting. Layh. Let me put that in chat. Layh. Check out Sean Lay when you guys get a chance. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Amazing. Did a portrait of Hamlet, I think. Oh, oof. So when you think about it that way, like you get this master artist who's taking like the most simple materials, not a rock, you know, and I'm being facetious here, but you know, they could use student grade materials and cheap brushes and they would still make amazing artwork. And I had really nice paints. I started and I was like, I'm going to go buy Oud Holland and make my own canvases and make, you know, work on the best of this and have to buy the best brushes. I did that. All those paintings have been in the garbage for a decade or more now. They were thrown away a long time ago. They were so bad. These are old paintings, right? Now that I'm working now, the better paintings I have are with the more inexpensive materials. Maybe crappy materials. They will never make you a better artist. The only thing these materials can do for you is make your painting process a little bit more enjoyable. Not easier, enjoyable. And that depends on preference. Like you prefer to work in a certain way. And how do we develop our preferences for anything? Like we're in it for a while. We're doing things within it. And then we develop those preferences as we go. Now, as you get better, as you progress through the 100 paintings, the 100 portraits, you may find like you go, I prefer linen because it's smoother. There's not as much texture. That's the purpose of linen. This is a difference from cotton because you put gesso in either one. It's the same exact surface. The only difference between the two is one is smoother, one's not. One's more expensive, one's not. So you got to understand that difference, right? And it takes time and effort working with it. So you may choose linen or more expensive paints, but that's based on your preferences. That's the next thing, your preferences. Sorry, I went off on that one, but a really good question. You know what's going to improve those portraits is as you move through it is your focus on what went well, what needs work, and how to get better on the next one. As your understanding increases on creating portraits, your understanding of your shortcomings and what you're doing well and how to improve, that's what's going to make you a better painter. That's the only thing that makes us better artwork, better painters in some way. And better is very subjective, whatever that means, you know? So we always have to think about that. Your understanding, where you're at, where you need to go, how you can improve, how well you did on the last one, and how to get better on the second one. And that's not easy. A lot of times you'll go, that one failed and I have no idea why. It doesn't look right. And so you put it up in a very prominent place. So you look at it over and over again. You go to sleep. You think about it. You go, oh, maybe that's it. Try on the next one. That's where improvement happens. Omar says, hey, Chris, I found recently a technique about grouping each part with human body with its own color value, like the shoulder has 3 values, the buttock has 2 values, etc. What do you think? It sounds too methodical, like a method. You know, it's kind of like when you have the canon of proportions for the body, right? Or for the head. You know, you'll see a lot of books, or I've seen a lot of books that will talk about the proportions of the head, okay? And they usually talk about the proportions of the head when the head is like kind of straight on, like it's a person, you know, looking directly at you. And they'll go, you know, this is this and this is that, and this always matches up with this here and that there. And then number one, I'm thinking, whose head are you talking about? And it's usually some stupid white guy, like right here, right? And they're like, these are all the proportions of a head. And so number one, I'm thinking about, oh, you're not, there's like different people all over the world that look completely different than this person, right? You know, these generalizations can kind of work in some ways, but then as soon as someone does this, you're like, okay, what happened to those proportions? I see nothing but the top of the head. Yeah. So be careful with that. When it's too prescriptive, I think it only works in very small scenarios, right? Very small scenarios. That's why I was like at the beginning of this, I was talking about the Loomis head, because it is a method, but it's a method for understanding form of the body in a way that is so simple that it could be applied to almost anybody. Okay, you know, we're not looking at, and I think some of the proportions go in the Loomis head, and you just have to kind of forget that. You know, you could look at it in this way: like we all have two eyes, right? We all have. Well, most of us have a nose and a mouth and two eyes and two ears. Okay. Like that's so generalized. We know when we're looking at a head that there's going to be two eyes, a nose, a mouth, and two ears. And we can apply that to all kinds of different heads everywhere else. But, you know, the space between those eyes versus one person to the next, or the length of the nose versus one person to the next is going to be very different. Right. So we can have big generalizations, but when we get too specific, we have to be very careful. Okay. Have to be very careful. Doobie says, I feel the same about musical instruments. Yeah, it's like, let's find that Stradivarius. It's like just a few left in the world. There are millions of dollars for one of these violins, right? Would you have a child play a Stradivarius? No way. They're not going to know the difference between, a $20 violin to a Stradivarius, right? And actually, it was so funny. I got caught by this video on YouTube, and this person did a comparison between a $7 flute and a $7,000 flute. Like, how are they so different, And, they played the $7 one. They played the $7,000 one. And I know that person was like, well, this $7,000 one is better in this way and these ways. But I'm listening to it and I'm like, that's the same flute. Same exact flute. Have no idea. Yeah. So varying things and trying out different approaches will help improve. Then that will be my approach. Yeah. I mean, intentional variation, not just like randomness. I'm just going to try something different today. Like the important part of what I was saying there was like, you're moving through your painting and what you want to say, like your visual language, the narrative in the paint is telling you something. Every brushstroke you put down, if you put it down and it feels grimy and kind of crunchy or something, or gritty and hard, and I gotta like throw it around, like notice that, really feel into that and go, oh, I don't like this, or I really like this. Oh my gosh, I need to let my paint dry for 3 days so it's chunky and I have to paint with like a shovel. That's informing your materials, so your preference for that. If you put on stuff and you're like, it's too thick, it's too opaque, I want more transparency, that's informing your materials. And then you can try different things, because if you know how surfaces react, like a raw paper is gonna force you to deal with clay, like you're almost sculpting. But UPO, which is non-absorbent, is going to really want transparency, very thin lines. It's going to help you move through certain things that have the paint very thin. It's going to help you with that thinness and that transparency. Let me see. I think I missed one. So varying things, yes, but intentionally varying things. Like if you go, like the first few paintings, you're like, oh my God, I love the combination of these materials. I love them so much. Stay with that. But eventually, if you're like, this is not working, I need this thing, go get that thing, take you to the next. Thank you very much, Chris. Is really helpful. Is that a cookie you put on there? Oh, that's yummy. Making me hungry. I'm kind of hungry. Ooh, it's already 11:20. I need to be leaving soon. I have to go help an artist with a friend of mine with their painting. Dennis says, great explanation. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate that. So my technique is wrong? No. Don't get caught up in wrong and right, Omar. Learning and learning what works for you, not learning what works for you. Okay. It's a pitfall specifically of like canon of proportions and things like that. Like I said, there are good methodologies for working through something, but there's also ones that get a little bit too prescriptive that only work in very specific scenarios. And so just be mindful for that. And, as I speak through these things, as I'm talking, the one thing that I'm cognizant of that I think you guys need to be cognizant of is you develop more understanding by making the mistakes that I'm trying to keep you from making. Mistakes, right? Whatever that is. So if you're like, this is the technique that I want to work with, and I think Chris is wrong, hell yeah. Stay there. And be stubborn with what you think is right. But also be very what's the word, where you're like cognizant of what you're doing, not that you're just like barreling forward and being obtuse to all of the input that you're getting, right? And just saying, no, I don't care what you're saying. Like you put blinders on you. I don't care. I'm just going to keep going forward, without thinking about it. But to this point where you're like, no, this is what I want to try. I know Chris said not to, that, here's the problems that you could arrive within it, but I'm going to go for it anyways. I'm going to figure out why Chris thinks this. That's where deeper understanding comes. Okay. Like all the stuff that I told Cookie could be completely wrong for you, Cookie. It's your understanding of how you're moving through these materials and non-solvent approach for 100 portraits that is the most beneficial thing for you. So going, okay, thank you, Chris. Here's this information here. I think I might take a little bit of this, but I'm going to be very cognizant of how I treat it and like the feeling that I have when I move through this painting, because your feeling, your authenticity, your thoughts of how you move through this thing called artwork and this game that we have is the most important. I don't want you painting like me. There is me, and I copy too much from Nicholas Rebane. I got to find out how to remove my authenticity or pull more of my authenticity into this. We want more of you guys in this world, not a copy of someone else. It's fine. We move through Nicholas Uribe. We move through other people to help us understand. But, if for a great example of this, you start getting to galleries and things like that, local galleries, maybe you're doing figurative work like myself, here's what I got all the time was, you should probably do landscapes. You should probably do still life. Everybody likes still life and landscape. And then I'm like, I hate still life and landscape. I don't hate it. I'm just bored of it. Right. Well, you just don't want to make money then. The actual comments that I get. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to make money. Okay, cool. This is what I enjoy. I'm going to stick with it. I'm stubborn like that. At one point I went to landscapes and still lifes and puppy portraits and things like that, and to make sure that I loved the figurative stuff. Came back to figurative stuff. That's where my life, my home, everything that I love is. And I stuck with it, So not only was I stubborn at the beginning and saying, no, I know I love this because I moved through it, but also moving away from it intentionally to kind of go around that stubbornness and to double check my own, right? But as an example of people will tell you a million different things of how they think you should work, but we have to move through those mistakes ourselves to have bigger, better understanding of things, and also know who we are, figure out who we are, and stick to our guns with that. I think it's super important. And I'm not trying to overwrite everything I said, because I still feel very strongly about materials are not going to help you ever be a better artist. It's all understanding and work and discipline and consistency, and all that makes you a better artist. And so I still feel strongly about everything I said, like the can of proportions only work in certain scenarios, right? But I just want you to be this kind of person that just doesn't take what I say and just does it because you like the paintings that I make. I want you to have your own mind, your own brain, and determine what you want to do, right? So that was a long-winded thing. And I wouldn't say your technique is wrong. There is no right and wrong in artwork anymore. It's like, oh, okay, Chris gave me a different understanding. Let me try. And then you might go, oh, this is terrible. I'm going to go back to that, because every brain is different. What makes sense to me is not going to make sense to you, of how to move through the drawing and form of things. Yeah. It could be like those canon proportions work for you perfectly in a certain way that I don't understand. And I'll be like, Omar, how do you do that? Teach me, So take everything with a healthy dose of your authentic self within it. And Dennis says another great artist is Mark Daly, Dailly, 2 L's. You guys are keep me on here forever. Estates Gallery, Mark Daly. Oh, these are really good. Okay, everybody needs to check out that artist. Fantastic. Thank you, Dennis. Why, when I learn a new thing, I get down like I don't know nothing? Here's it's a really good question. It's one of those topics where a lot of artists, a lot of teachers don't want to touch, because we're getting less into, we're moving away from, fundamentals of artwork, and we're getting into personal development, how our brains work, how our bodies work, how we feel about things, the psychology that we have, right? And I don't think it's, I'm going to postulate some things here, and I don't know, but we definitely, I think, Omar, I still need to, because we're going to have a one-on-one with my mentorship. So I still need to set up a date with you, I think. I can't remember if I did that or not. Oh my goodness, my brain. Let's talk about my brain for a second. I mean, that is so natural. When we go into something, we do a crappy painting, we're trying to learn something, we just don't get it. And it's like, gosh, I suck. I mean, I still feel that today, all the time. Number one, common humanity is fantastic. There's so many artists. I think every artist on the planet, we could look at Mark Daly, that was just shown, Sean Lay, Colleen Barry, all these amazing artists, Rembrandt, I know, had bad days and he thought he was terrible and awful and he should probably stop painting. We all feel this, even at the end of our life. I remember Hokusai, big wave, did the prints, this, I don't know, X number prints of Mount Fuji that, everybody will remember for the rest of eternity. He was like, maybe at 75, I'll know a little bit about this art thing. Even then, there's this healthy dose of how infinite this art thing is, and how much we all have to learn all the time. So bring in that common humanity and go this uncomfortable feeling, Like you're not feeling like you know what you're doing or you don't know anything at all. You do. You know a lot of amazing stuff. It's just you're outside of that comfort zone. When you feel that, this is a positive, not a negative. Okay, I'm outside of my comfort zone. I don't know this well. It's not working out the way that I want. It's exactly where we need to be. If we get comfortable, okay, if I ever have a painting or a few paintings in a row where it's like I'm just comfortable, I'm just running through the motions, just I don't have to think about the paintings anymore. It's just like, okay, I show up, I'm going to paint this portrait, and boop, 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 boop. Okay, I'm just going to paint this other portrait. Like we're some kind of machine, right? And we're like this conveyor belt of like production is happening. Like we're not thinking about it. That's probably when I quit doing artwork. I know I'll never get there. It's always going to be challenging, you know? Omar, you say, I just want to be a comic book artist, work for Marvel and DC Comics. I want to be versatile artist. Yeah. And you know what that takes is moving through the feeling that you have right now where you feel down like you don't know anything. And all of us know only a small bit, and it's okay. It's infinite. Like there's so much out there. And you know, like you look at all these artists and everything, and it's just like everybody's so good. And then also we forget about time frames as well. We forget about time frames. We look at, you know, I don't know, Madwerda, McFarlane, who is my favorite artist? John Romita Jr. I love John Romita Jr. I remember when I was doing a bunch of comic books, you know, Jim Lee, oh my God, you know, all these amazing artists, right? In comic books, and I'm sure a million more right now. And we go to draw like one of these characters or something, like Frank Frazetta, and we're like, oh, it looks nothing like it. It's so bad. Why can't I do that? Well, this is like the 3rd, 4th, 5th, maybe 10th or 20th time we've done something like that. And we're looking at artwork from people that have already been doing it for 2 decades. And this is probably the 6,000th drawing they've done of that head. And I remember hearing this story about 2 artists, and you know, they're in a gallery and they go up to a famous artwork, and one of the artists goes up to it and looks at a whatever thing that they're looking at and says, look how beautiful that is. Why can't I do that? I should be able to do that. And the other artist looks at this artist and says, how dare you? Like, how dare you go to a museum or a gallery where, you know, this is amazing master work and try to pull it down to the simplicity of only like a year or 2 of focusing on this infinite thing of art. Like, you're like this person was looking at this other person in a very negative way, right? You know, but we all tend to do this. We all tend to look at this as like, oh, for some reason, like for art, we do this. We're like, man, I look at Jim Lee's covers and I'm like, why can't I do that? Well, you haven't drawn 6,000 different covers like Jim Lee already has. Like, there's so much effort in that. It's like, would we ever go to like LeBron James or Michael Jordan or, you know, any of these amazing athletes for whatever sport that you have, like what is it, like Rolo for football, or I think that's his name, and go, why can't I kick the ball like him? Why can't I shoot the ball like them? Why can't I play the game this well? We never do that. Like, you know, like I go out on the basketball court, you know, and pick up the basketball for the first time and go, why I like Michael Jordan? We all know why I'm not like Michael Jordan, you know, because I don't have hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of hours into learning the complexities and understanding myself and all that's within this. Yeah. So where you're at right now, where you feel like you get down, you feel like you know nothing, is exactly where you need to be. And it's fantastic. Like if you ever get comfortable with it, that's the wrong place to be. We have to be uncomfortable. So it's good. You have to see these things as like, not as negatives, but as challenges, as the next step in this long journey. What is that? Hokusai, not Hokusai. It's like a famous Zen teacher from, back in the day, Buddha or something. I don't know. I'm terrible about that. But, every journey begins with one step and then a step after that and a step. So 1,000-mile journey. Guess how you start? One step and then another step after that, another step after that, another step. There's only one way to get there. And I'm sorry, there's no plane ride you can get on to go from, really quickly from where you're at to master really quickly. No, we all have to take that walking journey each step of the way. Sometimes our steps are pretty big. Sometimes we're just tiptoeing through this thing. That's what it feels like. But yeah, where you're at is exactly where you need to be. It always needs to be a little bit uncomfortable. That's what learning feels like. It's a bit uncomfortable. That book that I mentioned by Mastery by George Leonard talks about that because, he's talking about learning a martial art. And we'll do this thing. At the very beginning, we'll have like a spike of learning where we get good really well because we're learning things, and remember, there's a time frame here that I'm not explaining. Could be a year or 6 months, or it could be 10 years, right? But we'll have this like spike of learning, and then we'll have a plateau, and it's hard to stay on that plateau, and then a spike of learning, and then plateau, and then we'll figure out something, and then plateau. And the plateaus are the hard parts where you're like, oh, I feel like nothing's happening. But stay on the plateau, be patient, feel into that and go, this is where I need to be consistent. Michael says, everything negative, pressure, challenges, it is all an opportunity for me to rise. Yeah, Kobe Bryant. The guy knew. He knew how to get good. And it wasn't thinking about it all the time. It wasn't getting down on yourself because you weren't there yet. It was like going, oh, fantastic. I really sucked at that game. Why not? Why? There's something there telling me why. I remember he was talking once about like, he was like, yeah, I had some games. I wasn't doing well. He was like, all of a sudden, all my numbers started going down and everything. And he's like, okay, fantastic. Let's look into this. Let's figure out why. And he went through his drills. He went through his eating regimen. He went through his training regimen. He went through all of these specifics. And he's like, oh, my sleep. He changed his sleep up. Like this, like no one thinks about it. He's like, yeah, I ended up, instead of having only 6 or 7 hours in bed, I went to 10 hours in bed. And he's like, numbers skyrocketed after that. Yeah. Opportunities for fantastic awesomeness. That's what that down feeling can do. We got to try and switch that around and see the positive within it. Yeah, you're exactly where you need to be. Dude, 10 days on this painting, I'm not done with it yet. I'm feeling so frustrated with this painting. There's times within the drawing, I had to turn it upside down for a while, but it, that stick-to-itiveness, that like, okay, all right, I'm going to tackle you. I'm going to figure this out. Like you're telling me something. And usually that's right before you have that like increase in skill before you get back on the plateau, right? Where it gets like, oh, I'm trying to figure this out, where you understand things a little bit more and then you improve. You're just 34 years old. Okay. Age just a number, Yeah, using time well. Yeah, totally. 34 is fantastic. I just turned 51, dude. I wish I was where you at 34. You know, if you could take the next 10, 15, 20 years and be consistent throughout, I'm 50. It's all over before you know. Yeah, it goes by really quickly. You feel like you're too old? No, dude. But I feel the same way, and I felt the same way at 34. Oh, I'm too old. I need to get better, that kind of thing. No, not at all. Not for this art thing. Like if I was 51 trying to be an NBA player, they'd be like, what are you, crazy? Can't do that. Because, it takes a lot of physical stuff to do it. But this art thing, no. Your brain is elastic. Through your entire life, can always learn anything. No, you're not too old at all. But all the comic book artists are young. Who cares? The older you get, the more experience you have, the more understanding about life and things that you have, And you have an advantage. It's in some instances. Yeah, age is just a number, dude. Here's a story. Everyone knows Mozart, right? And people like to throw this... I'm going to clean up my paints while I talk to you. I'll show my painting now. I'm going to do a clean up here. Everybody loves to talk about Mozart. Well, Mozart was composing symphonies at 10 years old. They'll talk about that without any idea of the history of Mozart. Maybe it was Beethoven. It could have been Beethoven. I might be wrong on this. Anyway. Either Mozart or Beethoven. But what people forget or don't mention about that story is that the father of Mozart, we'll just say Mozart, okay? The father of Mozart was a famous composer, had been a composer for their entire life, his father. And before Mozart, they had a daughter, right? And I think it was Leopold, maybe the name. Look at that. Pulled that out of my brain. Could be completely wrong, though. But so the dad, for years and years, trained the daughter and started developing a method for training composers how to compose. Started when the daughter was very young, and the daughter became a very good composer and child prodigy. Started at a very young age. Well, they had Mozart after that. And the dad was like, I understand how to do this now. Let's do the same with Mozart, but I'm going to fix everything that I learned from training his sister before him. And so 5 years of age, he's got Mozart on the piano for 8 to 10 hours a day at 5. By the time Mozart was 10 years old, he'd already been, on the piano, playing the instruments, looking at music, trying to compose something. By 10 or 11 years of age, he's already had 10,000 hours of training. To give you an idea of how much time 10,000 hours is, I've been doing art every single day since January 2013, and I still do not have 10,000 hours, and I've been tracking it. I have close to 10,000 hours, but I'm not there yet. And that's 13, 14 years going. So we look at these young kids and we say, oh my goodness, look, they're child prodigies, so much talent, that darn word. But then when you look at the actual history, you're like, holy crap, no, this dude had 10,000 hours under their belt already. So 34, 50, 25, 10, doesn't matter. What matters is time, effort, training, consistency. How much time you got under your belt, A lot of times, people can understand things a little bit faster, so you never know. maybe in 5 years, you'll be just as good as the person you want to be as good as, Omar, you know? So Cookie says, getting older used to be a terrible thing for me. Now I'm happy to be a bit wiser with my age. Yep. Same here. Oh, I'm in a community of older people and they call me a baby all the time and I love it. That's fantastic. I'm like, yeah. Oh, yeah, you just bought the complete works of Mozart. That's really cool. I think it's Mozart. I'm not sure. It could be Beethoven. I could be totally wrong on that. Yeah, at least I decided that it's what I want. And that is so important. Like I knew at a very young age that art was my thing. And there's so many people that don't have that deeper understanding. Like they go through life at their regular job, 8 hours a day, and then come home, watch TV, and then repeat that over and over and over again. And then I asked them, I'm like, hey, what do you want to do with your life? And they're like, what do you mean? I live and I work. I eat and I play. And that's it. It's like, really? Is that it? They're okay with it. Okay, cool. How did you move your tablet so easy left to right? Oh, please zoom out on this. So this is a drafting table that I bought from, oh my goodness, my brain's dying. Sorry, guys. It's that time of the day. Home Depot. It's like $185. It's a nice drafting table. It's just wood. It's all wood. But then I built these things on it. I'm going to take it off so you can kind of see the side of it. I do really bad woodworking on the side. You see this? It's like this little hook, right? And it just hooks over, holds my palette, my iPad, so, and I can just move it. I did the same thing with my palette too, so it can move left and right as well, just to move things around. Yeah, pretty helpful. Little shelves and stuff. And anytime I show people that, like where you're building things, and I always tell them this, paint more. Do that first. Like I did not interrupt my painting process to build this. Made sure I got my painting done throughout the day or my drawing or whatever, and then go build stuff. Don't say, oh, this is a good excuse to not get uncomfortable and paint and draw. I'm going to go build this thing because it'll help me paint and draw better. No, go start painting. That'll help you draw and paint better. Oh, geez. Hold on 1 second. I got logged out of Toggle. I used Toggle, Toggl, to track my time. Oh, good. It didn't lose it. Ooh, that's nice. So I track my time every day with Toggle. The last 10 years was devastating because the health issue about a tumor in my head affected my dominant hand, so I trained my other. That's right, I remember that you said that now. Did not remember. I can draw with both. A little bit more understanding there, Omar, definitely. Like I can see because you kind of felt that progress before, and now it's like a degradation because you're at your non-dominant hand. I don't know what that feels like. Like I will never know what that feels like because that's you. That's your very specific life and your awesome stuff that you have going on. That's fantastic. But the only connection that I have through that is when I had like a 5-year hiatus away from art and then coming back to it and then learning that I lost a lot of that skill. It was the impetus for me to go, I'm going to do art every single day for the rest of my life is the only kind of connection. And that was hard. That was really hard to see that like, oh man, I lost all that ability because I just wasn't doing it, you know? And yeah, that was difficult. But I was just like, okay, I mean, I've done this before. I could build that back up again, right? I remember Nicholas Uribe, because he has a lot of problems with his shoulder and arm, that he did a few paintings with his left arm and left hand because he was like, I'm in such pain, I can't use it, but I still want to paint. And I can't imagine that. Like, I'm trying to keep myself as healthy as possible so that I can keep doing this. But yeah. Cool. Very helpful. Thank you, Michael. Okay. I have to run. Omar, I'll check him and see if I've sent an email with you, because I know that the other person that was on here, I forget their pseudonym, is going to pay for a one-on-one with you for us. And they've already done it. I just had to set up the date. Maybe I didn't set that up. If I didn't, don't worry. We get to talk so much more about this stuff. And it's awesome. It is awesome. And I've seen what you've done with your left hand, with your non-dominant. I can't tell. It's good. It's good, dude. Like, we can teach this part of our brain to do this thing. It's uncomfortable now, but you got this. And the best thing about it, you tell, like, once you get there, once you get to a point where you're doing things that you're getting even somewhat happy with, you tell people, yeah, I had some issues. And I went from my dominant hand to my non-dominant hand. And you're doing this paintings. They're like, are you kidding me? You're doing this with your non-dominant hand? It's fantastic. And then using that to help others is fantastic. There's I could talk forever. Oh my gosh, I got to go. But I remember I think I was doing stuff with Jeff Watts in the Watts Atelier out in California. I wasn't out there, but online their atelier, and they were doing something online. It was like a competition or whatever. It's like submit some artwork, right? And it was a lot of really good artwork submitted, and they were judging it. And Alan and Jeff Watts pulled out like a lot of the best work that he thought was amazing. And he pulled up one painting it was good. It was pretty good. It probably wasn't to like the level. It was close to the level of everyone else. And he was like, okay, I pick this painting. And he was like, not only because it's really good, but because the artist also sent some images of him painting the painting. And the guy was painting with his mouth, with he was paraplegic, could not use his arms, I think, maybe quadriplegic, I don't know, but painting with brushes in his mouth. And I was like, I couldn't paint that good. And instead of being like negative about this, like, oh man, I can't paint that good, I should probably just stop now, in this negative way, it was so motivating. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I have the use of both hands in my brain and my legs and all this stuff. Like, I have so much opportunity and possibility. Like, it just propelled me to paint more. One story that I don't tell very often, and that was because it's more like exercise and things like that. I remember, and this was before I got back into painting, but I was just working at my development job. I remember we were in an apartment at a time, and we were on the third floor, and my office could look out over like the parking lot, right? Sometimes I don't know what hand I draw with. Yeah, it's like ambidextrous. You're going to be like, you could do it with both at some point. But I'm looking out over the parking lot, and one of our neighbors who was on the first floor was paraplegic, did not have the use of their legs, so in a wheelchair. And I kid you not, one day I was watching them get in their car, and they had like this really old car with a really big door that you could open up the one door and you could get into the front and the back of the car at the same time, like one of those old cars. And so they rolled their wheelchair up to the side of the car, opened the door, got out a particular like board, had to kind of slide their way into the car, and then, lean, like buckle in, lean out, fold up their wheelchair, very carefully try and get that into the back of the car or into a place in the car, And I bet you it took them like 20 minutes to get into their car and get situated so that they could drive off. And I knew that this person was just going to the grocery store, which was like literally like 2 minutes away. And then I was thinking, okay, they have to get out of the car, get into the grocery store, like do that whole process again, probably get a few groceries, get back into the car, go home, get back out, like all of this, like all of that effort. And I was like, at this time I was almost 250 pounds. I was 240 something pounds, very overweight. And I saw this and I was like, I have so much opportunity. And here this person is like working so hard just to go to the grocery store. I was like, there is no excuse for anymore. Like it was more motivating than anything. And I was like, the next day I was in the gym, and I've been going to the gym and exercising as much as I can ever since then. And still I think about it today and I'm like, I'm still not doing enough. I feel like I'm still not doing enough. Like I need to do more. I need to be like as much as I can. Right. Yeah, I could talk for days, guys. So I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much. chrisbevan.com. Support me in any way you can. Like, subscribe, buy a painting, mentorships, whatever. Show up, have fun, ask questions, and paint. Be creative, guys, as much as you can every single day. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Omar, Michael, Doobie, Cookie, everybody on here. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.